In the previous lecture, you have done with oogenesis and spermatogenesis, right? Oogenesis is what? Oogenesis is the formation of ova. Okay, oogenesis is the formation of ova. Now, if you talk about the formation of ova, guys, so we can say that it takes place within the ovary, right? And it is started before birth only. Like spermatogenesis to started after birth, but oogenesis started before birth only. And also, when the oogenesis started now, right, uh, like it's not like it is complete, it get complete within the at the embryonic stage, right? It just halt the division at a particular stage. Like which stage it halts? Meiosis 1. In meiosis 1, at prophase 1, at prophase 1, at the dikinesis phase, it halts the division. The remaining division is started when the female mature, when the female attains the puberty level, or you can say when the menstrual cycle begins, then the next division started, right? Then the dikinesis, then prophase 1, metaphase 1 and all completed, right? And ultimately you will get the secondary oocyte, the primary oocyte converted into a secondary oocyte. Now this secondary oocyte again undergo a meiosis division, right? And again when it divide meiotically, then what happen? It will form secondary polar body, okay, where in the fallopian tube, like after the ovulation, secondary oocyte, within the secondary oocyte again meiosis 2 started, but again it halts at metaphase 2 stage, okay. Then when it meets with sperm, then only the next division is started, and then it completely form ovum, ooted, or you can say ovum and the polar body, okay. So basically in case of females, the division halts after some duration of time. Now menstrual cycle again play a very important role in case of reproduction, because because due to this menstrual cycle, during this menstrual cycle only, the egg develop, okay. So here menstrual cycle, basically it is a reproductive cycle of female primates, right? It is a reproductive cycle of female primate called menstrual cycle. So this cycle is called as a menstrual cycle. The first menstrual cycle or the menstruation begins at the puberty called menarche. So the first menstrual cycle when started, right, the process called as menarche, okay. Like whenever the menstrual period, whenever the menstrual cycle started, now that starting period is called menarche. Menstrual cycle repeated at an average interval of 28 to 29 days. So after every interval 28 to 29, this menstrual cycle started or repeated after every 28 days. So like suppose 1 to 28 days you have, right? So now after 28 days, again first day of menstrual cycle started. In some female it is of 28 days, in some females it is of 29 days, right? So basically every month this cycle continue for 28 to 29 days. The ovum, right, one ovum is released in the middle of each menstrual cycle. Middle of each menstrual cycle means like at the 14th day, right? At 14th day, okay, you can say that 14th day basically is the day at which the egg releases from the follicle, okay. So the ovum releases at 14th day, or you can say the middle of the menstrual cycle, the egg releases. So it is called as a ovulation. This phase is called ovulation, right? Now menstrual cycle basically has following phases, right? The menstrual cycle has basically the following phases. What are the following phases of menstrual cycle? Number one, menstrual phase, right? The first is what? Menstrual phase. Menstrual phase is what? The first phase of menstrual cycle. Okay, it is a first phase of menstrual cycle. Now this cycle, in this cycle, the menstrual flow occurs, or you can say it is a bleeding phase. Okay, menstrual flow occurs, or you can say it is a bleeding phase, which last for 3 to 5 days. So this menstrual cycle lasts for 3 to 5 days. So up to 3 to 5 days these cycle, you know, continue from, see, from 1 to 28 is the day, right, of menstrual cycle. From 1st to 5th day is the menstrual, the first phase of the menstrual continue to first 5 days only. During this stage, the breakdown of endometrial lining and the blood vessels. So basically during this phase what happened, there is a breakdown of endometrial lining and blood vessel. So the endometrium lining, or you can say the wall of endometrium break up, and the blood flow out. Okay, mucus and blood comes out through vagina. So basically what happened na, during the first 5 days, the endometrium, which is a wall of uterus, inner wall of uterus, started breaking up. Okay, and then it will come outside in the form of blood. Okay, it come outside in the form of blood. So the breakdown of endometrium lining and the blood vessels takes place during the first phase. Mucus and blood comes out through vagina. So with the help of vagina, these mucus and the blood comes out. Occurs only when ovum releases but no fertilization. So it occurs only when ovum releases. Now suppose if ovum implanted, right, then what happened? No bleeding takes place. But when fertilization not takes place, right, if the sperm is not fused with egg, no fertilization, then egg releases. With the egg, endometrium also releases, and everything comes out in the form of bleeding. Lack of menstruation, basically the indication of pregnancy. And if the female is not undergoing a menstrual cycle, right, like if the menstrual cycle stop, menstruation is stop, then it is basically indication of pregnancy, right? Then the follicular phase, right? Now what is follicular phase basically, guys? It is the second phase of menstrual cycle. During this phase, the development of follicles, the follicles development started. Okay, so menstrual phase followed by follicular phase. Primary follicle becomes Graafian follicle, right? Here what happened? The primary follicle becomes Graafian follicle. So menstrual phase followed by follicular phase, right? Follicular phase. Follicular, remember, there is a primary oocyte. This primary oocyte covered with a granulosa cell. This primary oocyte surrounded by a granulosa cell formed primary follicle. Primary follicle converted into a secondary follicle. Primary follicle converted into secondary follicle, then secondary converted into a tertiary converted into Graafian follicle. So all these follicle development takes place during follicular phase, and where these phenomena event going on within the ovary. Okay, so these phenomena takes place within the ovary. Regeneration and proliferation of uterine endometrium. So here what happened? Regeneration and proliferation of uterine endometrium. This also takes place within the follicular phase. See, in first 5 days, the endometrium wall degenerate, okay, comes out in the form of blood. In case of follicular phase, again, the endometrium wall started generating, or you can say started, the development of endometrium wall started. LH and FSH level increases gradually in follicular phase. Now see, inside ovary the follicle develop, in uterus endometrium started developing, and in pituitary the LH and FSH started increasing, the level increases. Similarly, the level of estrogen also increases. Why? Because see here, the follicles are developing and these estrogen are releases from these follicles only. तो जैसे जैसे follicle develop होंगे वैसे वैसे estrogen का level भी बढ़ता जाएगा. All right, and then this phase lasts for 5 to 13 days. So 5 to 13 days, till 5 to 13 days, these phase followed. Ovulatory phase. Now, ovulatory phase is the third phase. FSH and LH attain peak level in this period. So, during this ovulatory period, right, now this ovulatory period basically it takes place at the 14th day. Okay, कब होता है ये phase? 14th day पे ये phase होगा. Right, at the 14th day. First 5 bleeding or menstrual flow, 5 to 13 is the follicular phase, 14th is the ovulatory phase, and after 14 we have a luteal phase. So at 14th days there is a sudden rise in LH and FSH. There is a sudden rise in LH and FSH, right, which attains peak level in the period. This is called LH surge, which induces rupture of Graafian follicle and release of ovum from the ovary, called ovulation, right? And when the LH and FSH increases, at that time only the Graafian follicle rupture, and what happened? The egg comes out, right? The egg releases outside from the Graafian follicle or secondary oocyte. So this is what we called ovulation. Then we have luteal phase. This is the fourth phase. So the remaining part of Graafian follicle now transformed into corpus luteum. Okay, so the luteal phase is what? Now once the ovulation done, once the egg releases from the Graafian follicle, now the Graafian follicle called as a corpus luteum. Simple. जब Graafian follicle से secondary oocyte निकल जाते हैं, अब उसको हम क्या कहेंगे? We are calling them at a corpus luteum. Okay. Corpus luteum produces large amount of progesterone. So this corpus luteum now produces what? Large amount of progesterone. Okay. So the corpus luteum produces large amount of what? Large amount of progesterone. This progesterone is again a hormone, right? Estrogen and progesterone both are the hormones only. So progesterone is also a hormone. Progesterone maintains the uterine endometrium and prepare it for implantation, right? So this progesterone further maintain uterine endometrium and prepare it for implantation. Thickness of uterine endometrium increases in many fold due to proliferation. So now what happened? Now the endometrium wall get thickened and thickened and thickened and thickened. So the wall of endometrium get thick, right, due to the release of progesterone. So with the help of progesterone only, the endometrium again become thick and thick and thick and thick, right? Initially it started forming, regenerating, and after that it becomes thick and thick and thick and thick. If there is a fertilization, corpus luteum grows further. So if there is a fertilization takes place, then corpus luteum grow further and pregnancy continued, menstrual cycle stop. So here what happened? If there is a fertilization, now agar fertilization ho gaya hota, right? If the ovum fertilized with sperm, then what happened? Zygote form. If zygote form, then what happened? Implantation done. So no degeneration of endometrium. तो जब endometrium degenerate ही नहीं होता तो नया progesterone और वो सब graphene follicle मतलब वो सारे phase खत्म हो गए होते, right? Grows further, pregnancy continue, menstrual cycle stop. In the absence of fertilization, corpus luteum degenerate. अब जब fertilization नहीं होता है, right, तो in that case again the corpus luteum degenerated. Disintegration of endometrium again leading to the bleeding, and you can again come to the first 5 days phase. Menstrual cycle ultimately ceases around 50 years of the age, called menopause. So the starting is menarche, right, and the ending of menstrual cycle is called menopause. So these are basically the 4 phases of menstrual cycle. Clear? Now this is basically the diagram which will represent all the 4 phases and all the 28 days. So here we have 1 to 28 or 29 days. Here in 1 to 28 or 29 days you have what? From first 5 days, right? See, first 5 days is the menstrual flow or the bleeding phase. What happened? The endometrium wall degenerated and the blood comes out, right? In the uterus this event takes place. Inside the ovary nothing changes in the estrogen and progesterone, but yes, the follicles started up. During first 5 days follicles also remain same. FSH and LH also no major changes. First 5 to 13 days again endometrium wall started forming, okay? Estrogen and progesterone again increases, follicles again increases, right? The development of follicle again increases. See, primary, secondary, tertiary follicle develop. LH and FSH started increasing, raising. At 14th day what happened? Sudden rise in the LH and FSH, ovulation, estrogen also raises. After that endometrium get thickened, progesterone releases, corpus luteum degenerated, and the level again goes down. So these are the changes takes place in the menstrual cycle.